All right, friends, thanks again for joining us here on the Redwood Chapel YouTube channel as we have an opportunity to connect with people and have conversations about race and the gospel. And I've invited one of my friends, Dale Anthony, to join me for this conversation. Dale, good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Good to see you too, Pastor. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to join in this conversation with you. I'm doing okay, given the circumstances. It's been a roller coaster of emotions over the past couple of weeks, of course.
For sure.
But just trying to stay positive,
Yeah.
stay prayed up, stay optimistic.
Yeah, I want to get into all that, but before we do, tell us a little bit about yourself. Just give me a little bit of background, kind of where
Sure.
you grew up, what your story is, and maybe even where you're doing ministry now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I'm an Oakland boy. Um, uh, Father of a Baptist minister, grew up in the church from day one, developed a love for music in the church, going to church every day of the week with my parents. I developed a love for music and playing the drums. So I started off as a drummer in the church, playing for the youth and young adult choirs and then adult choirs. And my love for music then began to sprout into other things, singing and directing and arranging and writing and whatnot. So yeah, most of my life in Oakland. Went to school in Oakland, high school in Oakland, did some junior college in Oakland. Then I branched out and went to Walt Disney's California Institute of the Arts, which is a performing arts college in Los Angeles, or in the Valley, actually, Southern California Valley. Got my degree there, vocal performance. That's where I learned to write music. And so then that's when I began to, start thinking about my long-term, desires and wanting to create and do music for God. And I started writing Christian music, gospel music and stuff like that. So after I graduated, I came back home and grabbed a few of my friends and we created this brand called Faith Out Loud.
Yes.
Which I got from my pastor at the time, the church I grew up in, True Vine in Oakland, West Oakland, Pastor Zach Carey. He taught a message on taking your faith outside of the walls of the church and what Faith Out Loud looks like. We are the church, so we don't need to be confined to a building, which we're learning right now in quarantine.
Yeah, right.
And so I basically took that notion, and the ministry there that I grew up in was definitely about putting the action to our faith and being the hands, feet, and legs of Jesus in the community. So that's actually where my passion for community and people came from, was being involved and growing up in that ministry. So yeah, I took that and built my music platform, Faked Out Loud. We recorded our first album in 2012. Went on to do some more music, recorded our second album at your church.
Yeah, the Faith Out Loud project was album number one. And
yes.
the debut album, the debut concert for the Closer album was right here at Redwood Chapel.
Absolutely.
That's where we met. What is that? 2017? Does that sound right?
2017. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I met my man Doug.
Yes.
Is the one who plugged me with you, and I got to meet you awesome guys and just began to fellowship and did the album release there. And that was awesome.
That was a fun show, man. It was a great time.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, man. It was a lot of fun. We had fun, and everybody there was so great, and it was just a great experience. So yeah, man, that's pretty much my background.
But you're still working in a church now, right?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I ended up transitioning from True Vine, my church, my home church, to Redemption Church in San Jose, Pastor Ron Carpenter. And I've been there for 2 years now, and it's been an awesome experience. I love my team and love the pastor and his word. I feel like I'm growing so much under his teaching. And so it's been really good, man. I'm still here in the Bay. It's been good.
Yes. You moved from Raider country to Niner. Well, I guess Raiders are in Vegas now.
Right.
Because you're right across the street down there from the Niner camp, right?
Oh man, we're literally one exit from. Our address is technically San Jose, but I feel like it's more Santa Clara because we're literally right there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. Part of the stuff I want to talk about today, I'm calling these conversations pastoral conversations about race and the gospel, and my heart is just in a place of learning, and a place where it's open. I feel like there's things that I need to hear and things that I need to learn.
Yeah.
And I also recognize that God's placed me in a position of leadership here in my church. And so I want to lead well. And part of leading well means learning well. And so that's where I'm at right now. I just want to glean any observations, thoughts, comments,
Sure.
point me to the scripture, do whatever you need to do. But let me just start with a question about George Floyd. Okay. So I think it's been 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks now since that video came out. And as I've mentioned before, I started to watch the video because it came across my Twitter or whatever else, breaking news or shocking video or whatever, the clickbait that makes you go on. And I click through, and I see this scene of a guy laying on the ground with a police officer's knee in his neck. And I turned it off like after 10 seconds. And Dale, my heart was, I know where this is going to go, and I'm not ready to see it. And I just had to get away from that for a second to kind of center, like where's my emotion? Where's my thought? What's going on? This does not look good. But I also recognize that there's almost a pastoral obligation to see and to be aware of what's going on. And so
Yeah.
I felt like the Lord really, if I can use that kind of language, kind of wanted me to see it, kind of pushed me back to go ahead and watch the video.
Yeah.
And through tears, brother, through weeping, just watching this situation play out. And that's me, right? That's 47-year-old white pastor from the East Bay, grew up in a predominantly white community. I have to imagine that the emotions for you as a Black man, seeing a scene that unfortunately has been played out time and time again. Can you talk a little bit about how you processed George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or
Yeah.
Philando Castillo? Name the name, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time I saw the video, I had I had a similar reaction as you. I was scrolling through Facebook, and when I got to it, I saw the thumbnail. So you can sometimes the video doesn't play automatically. You have to click the thumbnail. So I was scrolling rather quickly, and I saw the thumbnail. I stopped, I looked, and I immediately said, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. And I kept scrolling. I kept scrolling. And so I had a similar experience in that I have seen so much of it. My initial reaction whenever I see it is anger.
Yes.
And at this point, because we had been in quarantine and there's already other issues of pandemic and people losing jobs, it's just there's a cloud, if you will.
Oh, amen.
I didn't want that anger in that moment. But like you, similar situation with you, I was convicted that it's part of my experience, so I need to know. I need to know what happened. And so I wanted it to be a hoax.
Wow.
I wanted it to be a hoax. I wanted it to be something that wasn't real, because you kind of know rather quickly when these things happen, because they spread like wildfire.
Yes.
And especially for me, I'm African American. My family's I have African American family, friends. So the majority of my social media is made up of African Americans. So
Sure.
I see it all the time. And so in that moment, I wanted it to be a hoax. I wanted to keep scrolling to say, okay, let me see if somebody else posted this. Let me see if this is a real deal, a real thing. So I ended up going back and I ended up watching it. And the same emotion that I had, with Ahmaud Arbery, probably, I don't know if I can say magnified or the same, I don't know, but immediately it was anger.
Yes.
Immediately it was frustration. Immediately it was, why are we still here? When are we going to learn? And then, fear and and me being pessimistic started to set in, because I started going, this is never going to go away.
Yes.
This is never going to go away. I'm 37, and I've been seeing this my whole life. And so I started kind of getting in a mood, and that's what happens whenever I see something like that, is I get in a mood and I start going, when is this going to go away?
Yeah.
When are we going to get past this? When will we elevate past this? So watched it. It was painful to watch the disposition of the policeman, who almost seemed to look relaxed, or as if he thought that there wouldn't be any punishment, with the hand in the pocket. It was
very confident in his position of power, is the way
yes.
that I interpreted it.
Yes. Yes. So even talking about it now, I've got a knot in my stomach, because I'm just like, I don't know.
I appreciate your honesty. The anger turned to frustration, turned to fear, turned to just despair, right? Like, whatever. I mean, you never want to go there, but at some point there's a sense of what is going on? When will this change? How can this change? How can I be part of the change? And really, as ministers, like, we understand that there's a heart condition, right, that's behind this stuff. It's not as much, it's not at the surface level, it's color of skin or socioeconomics or whatever, but at the base of it is a heart issue. It's a gospel issue. It's a presence of sin, a fallenness that's in our humanity. And it manifests itself in these ugly ways. But for somebody who kind of grew up in a community where maybe you said you've seen this for 37 years, you've experienced this, is there a sense of which you kind of had those conversations with your family, or your dad had them with you as you were growing up? Hey, you're growing up in a society where you're going to have some challenges, or it's going to be a difficult thing, or you might face racism in some particular way. How were you prepared for that, or were you as you were growing up?
Not at all.
Okay.
I wasn't prepared at all. So my parents actually split when I was probably about 4 years old.
Okay.
And my dad remarried sometime after that and had a family. And so I spent the majority of my time with my mom, and single Black woman, working three jobs. I was kind of almost left to kind of figure it out on my own, because my mom spent a lot of time providing and making sure that the lights were on and the food was in the refrigerator. So, and she also gave me a lot of, what do I want to say? Freedom. Also gave me a lot of freedom to kind of navigate and maneuver and learn things. She kept me in church. So church and God and the Spirit and Jesus has always been like my covering and my guide and my teacher. So but as far as social issues, no, I didn't have. My dad never sat me down and taught me about how it was going to be being a Black man in America. He never taught me. He didn't teach me. Now I'm trying to even think. He didn't teach me when I go in restaurants to sit facing the door. I learned that on my own. I don't remember where I learned it from, but yeah, a lot of it was experience and just kind of navigating on my own.
Was there experiences that you had growing up where you felt like I'm being profiled in this situation, or I'm experiencing racism in some way? I mean, is that, forgive the ignorant question, is that is that a common every person question or situation, or is that unique to you, or what was your experience with that?
No, that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked that, because I was just having a conversation with someone else, in that when I was growing up, when I was in my probably teens and youth, it was more subtle. It wasn't as blatant in your face as it is now. And so that's why I feel like now, there's no way of excusing or making any kind of excuses, because everything we see now is being recorded and right there.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so when I was coming up, it was a little more subtle. Now, with law enforcement, yes, it has been like that probably my whole life. I've been racially profiled. I've been pulled over, and I've been told on a few occasions that I fit the bolo of, you know, this suspect that they're looking for. I've actually been pulled over and put in the back of a police. So I had a friend who was an organist, and so I was a drummer, and him and I would play for the same churches, you know, every Sunday. And I remember us being pulled over one early Sunday morning on our way to church, and drummers, if you're a drummer, you know that drummers have what's called stick bags. That's where you keep your sticks in.
Yep.
I remember being pulled over early Sunday morning by a cop and being handcuffed and put in the patrol car because they thought my stick bag had a pistol in it.
Wow.
was a some sort of firearm.
Concealing a weapon of some sort.
Yeah. So it's things like that, you know, that definitely has been happening throughout the course of my life. But for me, the stuff I'm seeing today has not happened to me personally.
Yeah.
But a lot of the more undercutting, not so blatant, that type of racism definitely has happened on numerous more occasions than you know, I can probably remember.
Yeah. It grieves me because I just, you know, I think about this term white privilege, and you know, it's kind of thrown around in the media or whatever. It's kind of a buzzword right now.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to be reflective of that term in my own life. And while it's not something that I would have normally labeled myself with, as I hear that story, as I hear that experience, I can't relate to it.
Yeah.
I've been pulled over a couple of times, mostly for speeding. I was scared, but I was scared of my parents' reaction, not the cop. I wasn't really worried that anything bad was going to go down. I knew that I'd done something, and I had to deal with the repercussions of that. But when the cop is approaching the car, my heart is not racing in a way saying something could go bad right now.
Right. And that's what happens. That's what happens for us is, you know, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Because the system has played itself out in a way that's been, it's too predictable to say that something bad could go wrong. And that's not to paint all police officers in a negative light. And that's not to say that there's not great value that our police officers bring to our community. Of course they do. But that doesn't mitigate the response of an African-American who is in that situation, who has watched these situations play out over and over and over again, who has seen not only them play out over and over again, but relatively very, very little repercussions for the police officers in the process.
Yeah.
And to think I'm at a disadvantage big time in this situation. And this could go badly. And as a person who has never experienced that, I've begun to see what people mean by white privilege, maybe in a way that I didn't see it before, even in my own upbringing in life.
Right.
And,
it's opportunities. It's opportunities, benefits, and advantages based on how you look. Unfortunately, you know, the color of your skin. It's you know, it's your ability to walk the earth and not be concerned what color you are.
Yeah.
Right. So talking about being pulled over by the police, because I'm African American, I have to navigate through life different than, say, a white guy would, because of those opportunities, advantages, and benefits that you have, benefit of the doubt even, that you have given to you automatically because of the color of your skin, right?
Yeah.
So even now, when if I get pulled over by the police, I turn on the lights, I take off my hat, I basically get naked already and put my hands up on it, because I don't want to give you any opportunity to even say that I reached for something, or he couldn't see my face because I had my hat on. Like, I shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to do that. But because of what we're seeing happen today, the way I navigate through life is in such that when the Ahmaud Arbery thing happened, I live also in a predominantly white neighborhood currently. Okay. I live in Pleasanton. Our first, I'd say, month or so of quarantine, my wife and I were real adamant about, okay, we are not going to get fat sitting in this house eating every day. We're going to make sure we go for a walk, exercise, try to do something. So sure. I was trying to make sure I did these daily jogs.
Yeah, they've been talking about the freshman 15 you gain in college. This is the COVID-19 that you gained during a pandemic. Yeah, exactly. I hear you.
Exactly.
So you're getting out good.
So I'm trying to go on these jogs, and then I see a young African-American kid on a jog like me. And what I think I assumed, I don't really know, but to be a white neighborhood, and he's gunned down like a deer. I mean, and he's jogging. And so immediately I begin to think, okay, well, what could happen to me if I'm out in my neighborhood, which is predominantly white neighborhood? I don't see a lot of my color reflected in my neighborhood. So, and I'm out jogging in this neighborhood, I had to change the way I'm navigating even my exercise. Yes. I had to say to myself, okay, maybe I'll go during this time and not this time. Maybe I'll make sure it's not too dark outside, or the light is, or whatever. I went to Target the other day and I left the house and I said, you know what? I'm going to hug and kiss my wife. I never do that. I mean, not that I never hug and kiss my wife, but if I'm just going to Target, I'm coming right back. I never think, oh, well, let me hug and kiss my wife, because
there's not an intentional.
I don't know if I'm going to see her I don't know if I'm going to even make it back, like things like that. So, when we talk about white privilege, that's what that is. It's the fact that you can do things, and not worry about what'll happen to you based on the color of your skin.
Wow. I appreciate your honesty with that, and just helping me to see that, because I'm blind in that area. I need to hear that, and I need to hear that. And I feel compelled to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that's the way that it is. The one response is, well, it's just what it is, what it is. And the other response is, we've got to change that. that cannot be. And when you think about, the term racism, I understand how it's used kind of colloquially in our society. I don't like the term, primarily because we are one human race. And so if we recognize the image of God is imparted into all of us, regardless of our skin, regardless of our color, regardless of our socioeconomics, whatever, every tribe, nation, tongue, and language is
not bond nor free, not Greek or Jew. Yes.
That's right. We're all in the image of God. We all have a position in Christ through the redemption that he has provided for us. If we could see that, then we don't need to talk about racism, because we're one race. We do need to talk about what I call tribalism, because I think we tend to associate within particular tribes as a way of protection, as a way of safety, as a way of, I feel comfortable here because either these people get me and understand me, or I'm good here. But if I'm in my tribe and you're in your tribe, and then those things start to war against one another, or there's a sense of mistrust between those two, then that's, again, where the problems arise. But I say all that to say, how you're working with people. You've got teams of people you've worked with. I've met some of your Faith Out Loud crew, just amazing people that you've invested in. Do they come to you kind of in a pastoral role and say, Dale, man, how should I think about this? Like, how should I process this? And if so, what do you say to your friends who are of African-American descent, who are just, they're fed up and they're mad and they're angry? And how do you center them maybe back to the gospel, or what is your approach with that?
Yeah. So let me go back a step. When you talk about tribalism, I think that's why it's so important for white people to speak and learn to understand these type of social issues and social injustices, because of the idea of tribalism, and that if you only stick to or understand or learn about your own tribe, then how can we live in unity if all you know is your own circle, if you
Right,
will?
sure. Yeah.
And I think that is also what helps us come to a reconciliation and a healing process, is when people of their own color, people that are in their own circles, begin to speak out on injustices of other circles.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right? Because then that shows the people in your circle that, hey, there are other people in this world than just the people in my circle.
Yes.
And God calls us to love everyone. God calls us to be a reflective of the light, and that is to all, right? Not just to the people in our circle. So it's good for white people to speak out on the issues, but then it's also good to put action behind what you say. So that way it's just not, oh, they're just saying something to pacify, or they're just saying something just to be heard or be seen, or for a photo op or whatever, something like that. So I segue into, that's how I lead. I lead by action. Yes. So I've never been one to engage in debate and arguments and, things like that. Social media is like a net for, just debate and argument, and because everybody has a voice on social media. You have your platform.
No one has ears.
Right. Exactly. Everybody has a microphone, but nobody has speakers to hear what others are saying. So I don't get involved. In stuff like that. I try to let my actions and, the things I do and the inspirational things I post be, like I said, the legs and feet and heart of Jesus Christ, because that's what I'm called to do. I'm not called to debate. And I'm not a very political, I could tell you, I'm not a political person at all. I only speak from my experience. So I don't get it. I treat politics and social issues and stuff like that the same way I treat my faith. And that is, I wouldn't even argue with somebody about, they get into these arguments. Well, Jesus born on Thursday, or was he born in November? I don't get into debates like that. I let the love of people and how I treat people, be the example of a better world, a better community. So my team, I think they kind of have grasped that because they've been with me for so long. And so, I find what I do best, and I let that speak.
Okay.
I'm a creative. So, I like to create. I create music. So I write. If I've got to send an email, I'll send an email. If I've got to sign petitions, I'll sign petitions. I'll share those things so that people can be aware of the petitions and the emails and things that we need to do to change legislature and change laws and change police reform, like voting, like that's important, making sure we're doing that. I've written a couple of social songs that, one of them I just remixed and posted a couple of weeks ago. So that's how I lead. I lead by example. I lead by action rather than my words, because a lot of times words don't mean anything if there's no action behind it.
Absolutely. And, I'm trying to think of how my response has been to this situation and what I want to do. And, I feel like I have lent a voice to this conversation at various times, but it's mostly been reactionary. In other words, a big event will happen in society and I'll speak to the event. Yeah. As opposed to having a proactive voice that is constantly keeping this conversation in front of people as a reminder of the inclination of our heart to continue to look after self, to continue to self-protect, to continue to build this kind of tribalistic mentality, as opposed to just constantly saying, no, this is antithetical to the gospel. This is not what God has called us to do. This is not what Jesus did. Jesus by every examination, went into the margins of society, went into the dark places, went into the places that nobody else wanted to go.
Yeah.
And he did it intentionally, and he did it to bring value into those situations.
That's
and
it. When
the church has missed it.
Yeah, when Jesus spoke about justice,
Yeah.
he spoke about it for the poor.
Yes.
All right. When
Yes.
you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. Right. Yeah. So, you know, and even when he spoke to the rich, it was about justice for the poor.
Yes.
Right. So it was about the haves helping the have-nots. Right. Yes. So, you know, if we're saying, and this is for the church, like if we're saying that we are going to be the legs and feet of Jesus, we have to first of all mean it and not just talk it, but we have to do it. But then we also have to show a love and understanding, like you said, for the people outside of our tribe.
Yeah. Well, I'm convinced that any form of religion that seeks to protect a position of power versus ministering to a people who are hurting is a false religion.
That's good.
It's a false gospel, and I think too long the church has been complicit to just say, hey, we're just going to protect what we got. You know, we got our building, we got our people, we got our finances, we got our budget, we got our thing, and it's good for us, and we're going to protect that position of power. But if we're protecting our power, our position, and forsaking the people who are hurting, we've missed the gospel.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's so good, talk to me. You know, like I said, well, it's clear on the video, I'm a white pastor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, yeah. What would you encourage me to say? What would you want to say to my congregation? How do you see the church needing to respond in these days? What does action look like? What kinds of things actually make a difference?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I mean, this is the first step right here. You know, that's why I said I'm honored. I'm grateful that you even reached out. You know, because I laughed with my wife. I said, Pastor Jeff wants to talk to me. It's like, he wants to talk to me of all people. It's like, so just the fact that you reached out and you thought it was important enough to get a group of folks together and have an open dialogue and conversation and make it available, you know, to your congregation is the first step. What I would say is exactly what we've already said. Learn and understand the root. There are certain things that, you know, I've had a white person say to me that rubs me the wrong way. I'll talk about a few of those, but I think a lot of times it comes out of you not understanding the pain and the hurt. Like when someone says, get over it, you know, how do you get over slavery? How do you get over segregation? How do you get over, you know, being hosed down by a water hose and having Rottweilers sicked on you? Like, how do you get over that, right? And so we're also seeing that, maybe not in that form, but very close, be played out the same way today. So, you know, when we're told to get over it and why are you so angry? I'm trying to think. Philippians 3:10, where it says that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings. That whole passage talks about understanding not just the miracles of Christ, but everything Christ suffered through and the pain and everything that he had to go through for us to have the right to the tree of life, right? And to have everlasting life.
Amen.
So the only way that people can understand why, you know, we can be so angry and frustrated is to understand what we've gone through and what we have to go through, and understanding white privilege and how that works against us, understanding systemic racism and how, you know, there's been disadvantages for African Americans, even all the way back to when we were kids in school, you know? So that would be the first thing I'd say. I've also had a white person say to me, you know, well, Dale, you know, I don't see color. I just see I just see your heart, and I just see, that you're a loving person and that you're so talented, and that could be probably one of the most misleading, borderline disrespectful things to say, because by you saying you don't see my color, that's basically you disregarding the experience.
That's right.
Right? When you met me,
Wow.
What was the first thing you saw? You saw that I was a Black man,
Yeah.
right? So for me, saying I don't see your color, I just see that to me is saying that you only see the things that make you comfortable.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
You know that I'm loving, that I have a heart for Christ and I'm gifted, but there's also an experience that comes with that, with me being a Black man in America,
Mm-hmm.
right? So don't disregard the experience and then say you support me,
right?
Because that doesn't go together, right? So that's another thing I'd say. Also, there's the debate with the Black Lives Matter movement, right? And so, you get people that come up and say, well, all lives matter. Well, we know that, right? We know that all lives matter. And the movement is not saying only Black Lives Matter,
yes,
or
yes.
Black Lives Matter more, or Black Lives Matter less. No, it's saying that because of what we're seeing right now, we feel like you need to know that we matter. We matter as well. Equality is what that's all we're looking for, is equality, to be treated equally. We see, go ahead, you're going to say something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of analogies about that related to the Black Lives Matter thing. And I'll say, I think the first time that I probably heard that term was when the Ferguson riots were happening in St. Louis. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But of all the analogies that I've heard, the one that resonates really cleanly for me is just thinking about Jesus's response to the lost sheep in Luke 15. So there's 99 sheep in the pen, and there's one that's off and lost. There's one that needs help. And what does Jesus do? He forsakes the 99 to go after
goes get that one.
To go get the one that's in despair, to go get the one that's in distress, to go get the one that needs help. That's the life that mattered in that moment. That's not saying that 99 weren't important, but the 99 were cared for at the moment, and this one needed help. And so, boy, to think about it just in that term helps me to see, yes, of course this life matters. Of course I can say Black Lives Matter. And I want to loudly, because that's the community right now that is feeling the least heard, that is getting the least amount of respect, that is feeling, just very unsafe. And I have to be able to listen to that. I have to be able to hear that. And like Jesus, if I'm going to embody the ethic of Jesus, I've got to go after that sheep, right? I've got to go make sure that community, that person, that friend of mine is covered in some way, and not exposed and not in danger. And
I used this analogy the other day talking to a friend. I said, saying all lives matter, it would be similar to a woman passing from breast cancer, and we're having a funeral for her, and somebody walks in and go, prostate cancer matters. Well, we know that. But what we're trying to recognize and honor in this moment, because this is where we're suffering with this right now.
Right, exactly.
And we feel like it doesn't matter to so many people.
Right.
So, that's why we're seeing, the protest and the unrest right now. And so, when you, I think Dr. King said, protests are the language of the unheard.
Yes.
And so for so long, when you have people that just want to be heard and want to be acknowledged and want to see justice the same way as as the Caucasian race, when you hear it for so long, you've been yelling for so long, at a certain point, you just explode.
Yes.
Just explode. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we're seeing right now.
And that's, to bring it kind of to a point of conclusion, just thinking about, where we go from here. And that's why I think that if especially as Christian brothers, like our desire, our hope, our only solution ultimately is the gospel. And is pointing people to an answer that says, as you already said, in Christ there is neither slave nor free, Jew nor Greek, male nor female, barbarian, Scythians. We're all one in Christ.
Yeah.
We're all made in the image of God. And when God looks at the redeemed's life, he does not see the color of our skin as an initial thing. He sees the blood of his son sacrifice over us. And that's what brings us into community with him.
Yes.
But that's not to say that the color of our skin is unimportant to him, because he made us every tribe, nation, tongue, and language. So
that's it.
To go back to a thought that you just said about this idea of being colorblind, why would we ever want to be colorblind when God made us in all these beautiful hues, in all these beautiful cultures, and all these wonderful places to see and experience and learn from one another? His desire is not that we would all be the same on the outside. His desire is that our heart would be united to his. And that's really where we're at, and what I think we need to continue to help usher into this conversation is that salvation is found in no one else but in the name of Jesus, and so let's go there, and let's meet there, and let's be united there, and carry this conversation forward.
Absolutely. That actually reminded me of a scripture. I'm looking for it now. It's in 1 Corinthians, because we're talking about where do we go from here, and what is the church's responsibility in this, and here it is. So 1 Corinthians in chapter 1. So it says, I appeal to you, dear brothers and sisters, by the authority of our Lord Jesus Christ, to live in harmony with each other.
Yes.
Let there be no divisions in church, right? So who is the church? We are the church.
That's right.
It's not talking about let there not be a division in the building.
No.
Let there not be divisions in us, in the church.
The people. Yeah.
Rather be of one mind, united in thought and in purpose.
Amen.
So, again, I can just say and repeat that, when you have where there's Pastor Ron says this, and I love when he says this, where there's understanding, there's grace.
Amen.
Right? When you understand a thing, you know why it reacts, why it does this, why it does that, because you know it, you understand it. And so, that's what I have to say to the church and to people that believe in Jesus Christ. We're supposed to be reflecting love, and just like I believe racism is taught. I don't believe that people are born racist. I believe that somewhere along the line, somebody showed you how to hate somebody else because of what they look like.
Yep.
Somebody taught you that they were less than because of their skin color. So
someone taught you a response. Yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah.
There you have it. So I think we can do a better job of getting the next generation prepared and ready to be the ones that break this, because it's taught.
Amen.
It's taught, and so we can unteach it.
Dale, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for helping me to just think through some of these things and for giving me some of your time.
Absolutely.
I want to say to you that, if there were ever anything that I could do for you, please reach out to me.
Absolutely.
You got a new album coming. You want to drop it here, feel free to do that.
Absolutely.
too. But
absolutely. And let me take this time while it's still recording to say this to you and to Doug, because, when I reached out, I was looking for somewhere to have my release that, would fit the size of the crowd we needed. And I had reached out to other churches whose pastors were not Black. And the response and the love that I got from you guys was unmatched. It was so different than what I had gotten previously. And just to acknowledge you for the work that you do in the community, for what you're doing right now, and for the way you treated me personally. I just want to say thank you, and thank Pastor Doug.
Yep.
And, I even said it at the concert, this can get better, and there is a way for us to work together and love one another, but both sides, everybody has to be willing to learn, understand, and humble themselves.
Amen.
And unlearn a lot of the negativity that we've been taught. Yeah. And so again, thank you for this platform. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Love you guys. And anytime we can collab, we'll do it.
there are very few people on this planet who have a heart like Pastor Doug, and
Yeah.
he is a genuine man who
Yes.
cares deeply about all people. And
Yep.
I'm so glad that you were the recipient of that, and I'm glad we were able to help out. And like I said, we're available to you. So thanks,
Awesome.
brother. Appreciate
Yes,
you,
sir.
and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yes, sir.
Right on.